Have you ever done anything like this before?
I have not, no.
Excited?
I'm very excited. We've got incredible stories to share with everybody.
From Webisodes, it's the very first episode of GrowAbility, a digital documentary at the intersection of urban agriculture, food security, and community. Holly, on the very first episode, I got fired before I even got started.
Yep, our producer Adam Caplan pulled the old switcheroo and took over hosting duties.
He did. And then we did a deep dive on why we created all this.
No shade, but Adam doesn't seem much like a farmer.
No, but he does have a deep passion for community and things like poverty reduction, so it made sense to partner with him for this project.
I love our origin story.
Me too, but I still feel like we're never going to actually get Adam's hands dirty.
That will not stop us from trying though. But before we get to the interview,
if you like this podcast, please tell your friends about us.
And please rate and review us. It's the best way to help others find out about us.
Follow us. We're GrowAbility Pod at most major platforms.
We have links to our socials at bio.site/GrowAbilityPod.
And sign up for a free subscription to our fresh and nutritious newsletter at growabilitypod.com for the latest from the GrowAbility crew.
We'll put links in the show notes.
Speaking of email, send thoughts, ideas, stories, and questions for future episodes to joe@growabilitypod.com.
And a huge thanks to Siskins, the law firm, for letting us record this podcast in their beautiful office.
And now we bring you our very first episode, an interview with me and our Mr. Clean Hands producer, Adam.
A quick shout out to Siskins, the law firm, for hosting GrowAbility here in the plaza at their gorgeous head office. As a design nerd, this space is a dream, and it's remarkable that they've opened this up to community partners for events, meetings, and our crazy idea for a podcast. Huge thank you to Siskins, the law firm. I know this was mentioned in the intro, but we chose a different format for this episode. As the producer of GrowAbility, I wanted to talk to Joe about the podcast, GrowAbility in general, and what you, our audience, can expect from us. So I climbed into the seat Joe normally sits in, and here we are. Joe, getting to this point has been a lot.
It's been a lot.
It feels like we've started a long journey, and now we're starting a whole new part of a new long journey. So I wanted to kind of use this opportunity to talk about our shared history and the whole bit. And so let's start with the patch.
Okay.
It's an acronym, but it's also an idea. Talk me through what the patch is.
The patch is a patch. It's hopefully a temporary solution until cities, provinces, countries can have a handle on food security for all people. So the patch was designed to utilize urban spaces to grow food for people that are food insecure, with a focus on people that are living with disabilities and barriers.
And there's an acronym to it.
People, agriculture, training, community, and hospitality. And those are also the pillars of the project.
So it's a function of your work with Hutton House.
It is.
How did you kind of come up with this idea? You know, Hutton House, sort of for those who may not know, Hutton House is an organization that really supports individuals with disabilities, supports the families of individuals with disabilities by offering sort of everything from employment training to just sort of lifestyle improvements and so on, if I'm getting the mission right.
That's our stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So my opinion is nobody comes up with a great idea on their own. They're inspired by their community. They're inspired by their friends, their family, their colleagues. I think there's a couple catalysts in the work of the patch. One is that I'm lucky enough to work at an organization that sees people and their needs through a holistic lens. Hutton House is a place that has a little of something for everybody. From, pottery, a gym, employment services, literacy, a volunteerism, and of course some farms. The idea for the farm came from a fellow parent at my children's school. We were talking about what an urban farm could look like and how community and a not-for-profit organization could come together to provide a special space for people.
And that's just not any sort of parent, another parent. That is, if I understand, Dr. Gabor Sass, who plays an outsized role.
That is Dr. Sass indeed. And it was funny because we didn't know each other. Really, our children were in the same class, but we didn't know each other. We were friendly. We'd say hi. And it was a great sales pitch. What if we joined forces to come up with a space that could be a social space in a neighborhood where people could grow food and gather. And from my point of view, when I heard the sales pitch, my specialty in the social services world is supported employment. So all I thought was, wow, this could be a great space for people to learn some transferable employment skills. A lot of people with disabilities, they come into the workforce and they don't have skills that they've gathered through cooperative education, through previous employment experience. So they're coming out of high school and they're looking to find work, and the resume is a little thin. So I thought, what a great way to teach people how to work.
Now you might have thought it was a great way to teach people how to work, but this is kind of a crazy idea. How did you sell it to, how did you go in your boss and you're like, I want to start a farm? Like, how does that, I guess when you put it like that, right? But how did you sell it to your boss? How did you get this through?
I got some cool bosses. That helps. We work, Hutton House, we get to the yes. So I think that you have to believe in an idea, and you have to move past the glee and the excitement and the off the wallness that is an idea that sparks and inspires you, and you have to move to quantifying that it would be good for community. And I don't know that I was totally there when I proposed the idea, but I think that I was moving in that direction, and our executive director and fellow manager saw that. So they were like, yeah, this could be good. And then something called the pandemic happened, and we had to prove that it would be good.
I would imagine doing that when you're in, like, there's a few things that came out of that I want to kind of go to. And the first thing I want to kind of talk about is that, you're trying to build a farm when everybody's kind of on lockdown. So
Right.
What was that experience like?
You know what I think the blessing of that experience was? I had nothing to compare it to, because I had never built a farm out of pallets in an old storage yard. So I had no gauge of reference. So maybe ignorance was bliss. All of the challenges were new that we came across. So, I mentioned pallets. We were supposed to build the farm out of wood that we were supposed to buy from a lumber yard. And that caused us, with the rise in price for wood,
Right.
we were stuck. So we thankfully had a really great partner, and have a really great partner in 3M, an organization based out of London that is worldwide. They gave us 527 pallets because we asked for 527 pallets, and they were like, oh, well, yeah, for sure. That makes sense. We learned about site amendments. We learned about floodplains. We learned a lot, and the City of London were really gracious with feeling our enthusiasm, but teaching us along the way.
One of the things that you, I think, discovered, and we've talked about previously, is that you also discovered a lot about the realities of your constituency when everybody was stuck inside.
Right.
And you saw the patch, which I think wasn't just a storage yard, it was a former landfill site, I think.
It was.
You saw this old landfill site turned into a city storage yard as much more than even just an urban farm. I'm wondering if you can talk about that connection between community and people being stuck inside, and what you saw this place could be.
I think, and if I reflect back on the time, and I reflect on it a lot, it was a really great time to see the value in your community, the people in your community, but the spaces in your community. It in a lot of ways, it felt like a privilege just to be outside. It gave you time to reflect. We slowed down a lot in the world, and it gave us time to see the spaces and to see the people, and have a little bit more time to realize the value of space. And that space, it was a space that was picked by us. It wasn't a space that was offered to us. We saw that space, and we saw the proximity to a really wonderful neighborhood that is the Kensington Village neighborhood. We saw the proximity to downtown, to other organizations that were assisting people that were food insecure. We saw this was prime real estate to us. It had, there was a time when this was agricultural land. There was a time that you mentioned when this was a landfill site, a storage yard. It was a storage yard when it was on our radar. but it felt like a special space with the support of the neighborhood. We are big advocates for the downtown core of the city. We feel that that's the heart of our city. So it felt like a really special space, and maybe we would have missed it if it hadn't been for the pandemic.
It really is remarkable. And with the green space next to it, at Cavendish Park, it really is an absolutely remarkable space. And when I did the drone shot and sort of jumped up high above, you can see, as you point out, the downtown core, right, almost steps away from this urban farm. I'd like to switch gears a bit and
Sure.
have you take me back to the time when you thought to yourself, I'm going to give Adam a call, and I'm going to give Webisodes a call, and talk about producing a documentary about the patch, which was the origination. The original idea here was it was going to focus just on the patch. We've obviously expanded it since then. But back in that moment, what was in your mind? What were you hoping to achieve by having a sit down with me and Sammy?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start by giving you a compliment. That we have worked previous to that experience. We had done some video vignettes through my work at Hutton House, and I had a wonderful experience doing that. Shooting film and shooting video was not something that was on my radar. Was not something I had done for work prior to that, and I had a really great experience. And I saw the impact of utilizing media to assist people that we support through Hutton House. The use of media visuals gave people a voice. It helped people understand. It helped people see the ability. And that was done through the assistance of Webisodes. We didn't have that tool. That was not a tool that we had in our wheelhouse prior to that. And when I was thinking about the work that we do, and not just the work that we do as part of the patch, but the work that a lot of other great groups do in the city, I knew that we needed a voice outside of our networking groups, our meeting groups, our urban agriculture groups. I knew that we needed a larger voice because this is good work, whether it's the patch, whether it's urban roots, whether it's the wormery, it's good work. And I felt that people needed to see it. And I knew that Webisodes was the right group to help us realize that vision. I don't know the quality of the product I produced. It was produced by passion to write out. I don't even know if the modern terms of treatment, but I wrote you something, and I wrote it from the heart, spelling mistakes included. And I think that's where that conversation originated.
Yeah, I think it was. I think I asked you to write something out so I could get an understanding. Because when you came by for that, and I think I've talked about this since that first conversation. You're talking about what a patch was and what that there's the and I really I didn't understand. I honestly didn't understand, probably because of the scope of it and the nuances of it. I didn't understand how sort of in depth this and broad based this idea was, and I think that's part of the reason that this podcast series is so important for me. Absolutely. Is diving into that broad base and kind of going deep rather than wide pretty quickly. Right. And I hope that that's what we're able to accomplish. But since that first meeting, Hutton House has and through you has partnered with us to produce this and a number of other things. And I'll be honest, like, your team has put in a ton of hours, and not just your team, but a lot of the other volunteers that are involved. Right. And I can't see doing that just because I'm sure I'm a delightful person to spend time with, but I can't believe that's the only reason. Maybe it's Sammy. But there has to be a sort of, for lack of a better term, and not to sound nefarious about it, but there has to be some sort of a secondary motive, or maybe a primary motive, actually, is a better way to say that. So how does GrowAbility as a project help Hutton House in its mission?
I think that when I look at it, the work that we need to provide our community is sustainability. It's playing, people use this term, playing the long game. And there's work, there's pilot projects, but you want to lay a footprint that will reflect future generations. and the things that we do, we're not doing for ourselves. I'm probably, closer to retirement than when I started my job. It's the work that we do for children in school right now, for people starting in the workforce, for senior citizens, for our community. And we want to lay down something that's special. And we want to lay down something that other people can pick up and that they can continue. And I think the reason for doing something like GrowAbility is we're lucky. We are, there's a group that are involved in this, volunteers, staff, partners, webisodes that see the value in sustainability, that see the value in people, see the value in community. And I think that with GrowAbility, we can lay down, like I said, a footprint for people to follow and to make their own.
I think this sort of blends perhaps into my next question.
Sure.
But it's worth asking because I think that I want to set this context up for not just this conversation, but for what we're doing with the podcast in general. And that's that I think we agreed really early on, we didn't want this to be about our hometown.
Right.
That we really saw the values that went into the patch, the ideas that sort of founded, food security, all of we'll get into in a moment. We wanted to have at least a national footprint.
Yes.
I know why that was important for me because it opens things up in terms of a future for the project. It changes the dynamic of a project. But why was having that national? I mean, Hutton House could benefit by having this out into the world locally or regionally, and But why was it important for you and for Hutton House, or maybe just for you, to have this have a larger footprint, a larger reach than just our regional?
Well, and that's a really good point because Hutton House is a local organization. There's no other Hutton Houses outside of London, Ontario. And when we look at people are people, and people have the same triumphs and struggles in other communities. I've been lucky enough. I've lived in other communities, and I've gone and I've been, the new face in that community, and I've been supported. I've been cared for. I've been embraced. I've been assisted in succeeding in other communities. And these are things that I think are universal. We want to help each other. We want to help people succeed. We want to help children grow in safe spaces that are sustainable for their future. We want senior citizens to thrive and feel healthy. These are universal themes. And, this with media, these are things that we can lay down a footprint that people can take up in any community.
I think that as we've moved through this, that's what sort of really struck me, is that there are people from coast to coast to coast in Canada for whom even one of these ideas is kind of a lifestyle, right, or is part of their life, if not as a style, then as a consequence of circumstance. And so I really think that, I've certainly fallen in love with this project. Right. I've certainly personally just found profound inspiration and not to be sappy about it, but actually a lot of hope in the work that the patch is doing because of the first letter in that acronym, because of the people who are involved. And I think that adding to that group is going to be a really marvelous thing. So now that we kind of are underway,
right,
as of about 23 minutes ago,
yep.
How have your goals and ideas about the project changed since that first meeting?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when I think back to that time, it was about highlighting organizations regionally. And I didn't see at that point beyond the people that supported the work that we did during the pandemic. And when I wrote what I called it treatment, when I wrote that to you, it was about people that I knew supported the patch and that there would be no patch without. But I know that there could be projects like the patch anywhere. And I think the themes have become more universal, with the foundation being people supporting people helping people grow. So I think that the concept has stayed at the root of people, and that the themes have just become universal.
And, wordplay like the root, that's not going to be the last time we use those bits of those puns.
We're doing that.
Yeah, and it's, so GrowAbility really has 3 key pillars, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I want to dive pretty deep, not hugely deep, but I want to kind of explore these. And the 3 pillars are urban agriculture, food security, and community.
Right.
While it might seem apparent, I think that these are dots that also have some kind of thin tension between them, but I really want you to connect those dots for me in terms of this project.
So, why don't I start at the end and go backwards? So community, it's all about community. There are so many distractions in every community that impede us from caring. And I think that's one of the ways that we got here with food insecurity. And I think that, we all get so busy in our personal journeys trying to take care of ourselves and take care of our family that we don't have the time to look at the larger community. And there are people that are struggling with food insecurity. And one of the antidotes of that is urban agriculture. And then to go right back to the end, urban agriculture is community. It's growing some carrots and it's taking it to your neighbor. It's receiving some carrots from your neighbor. It's, I've got a little bit of extra land, or I've got a balcony. Why don't we grow together? Why don't we take care of our community? Why don't we build a stronger community, a happier community, a more caring community?
And I think the point that you make there it's a really important one, is that you don't need a big backyard. No. You don't need access to a community garden, although they're occurring in more and more urban spaces. That anyone can kind of be an urban farmer. One of the things we've talked a lot about Cavendish.
Yes.
What we haven't really talked about is Nathan's Urban Farm.
Right.
And it's in some ways it's the genesis of the patch.
It is.
So maybe talk a bit about how Nathan's Urban Farm kind of launched this in a way, what it is, and so on.
So it's named after somebody. It's named after a very principled young man that we lost too soon. It's named after Nathan T. Deslip. And Nathan was a community connector. This is the term I always hear about Nathan. Nathan was a community connector. And I never met Nathan, but I've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time with Nathan's parents. And, I think, parents, they hold their children dear to their heart. And physically, when they can, and emotionally when they can't. And they hold Nathan's ideals of being a community connector very dear to their heart. They started the Nathan T. Deslip Fund to allow their son to have the life he should have had. Mona and Tim, Nathan's parents, approached us. They had always been gracious employers through our supported employment program. They approached us with an idea. The start of the pandemic, no moss grew in that Rolling Stone. They said, we've got to do something. We've heard about these towers, these tower gardens, and I love wacky ideas. I love them.
I'm familiar.
And this wasn't a bridge too far, but it was crouching in on it to buy a bunch of towers and grow a bunch of vegetables and get them out to the community. But you know what? Everything was on the table. With the pandemic, everything was on the table. With our community, people with mobility issues, people with anxiety, people with agoraphobia, we didn't have time to assess. We didn't have time for committees. It was time to do. And Mona and Tim are doers. And Hutton House is an organization that's at the heart that we do things. We bought a tent in 1952 so that we could offer programming to people. There's no time to take it to a committee. And when the pandemic happened, we got together with Tim and Mona and we started Nathan's Urban Farm with these towers. And these towers that we use, they are a medium of how we grow. They are a tool that we use. And the concept is beyond the tool, but the concept is also part of the tool, that we can grow in innovative spaces. And we grew in an office space. We grew just down the road from here in the core of the city. We grew, and that first year we did 700 pounds of leafy greens, which is a lot of lettuce. That's, 700 pounds in concrete doesn't have a big physical footprint, but 700 pounds of lettuce has a big physical footprint. And for people that didn't have the ability to go out and get healthy food, it meant the world.
And this was, and if I'm not mistaken, this was actually being grown in the office space that Mona's company had occupied, but nobody was in because everybody was working remotely. Is that right?
That's right.
So really a deep partnership with Mona and Tim and the foundation, and of course Jessica as well, their daughter.
Of course.
So Nathan, I think Nathan was a friend of mine.
Yes.
And we still have, I'm still friendly with a number of the people that knew him. And to a person, when I've mentioned that we're doing something around this, their first response is, let me know how I can help.
Right.
His legacy does carry on, and I'm delighted that it is a part of this project as well, and will potentially carry even further. So this time next month, GrowAbility will be live and out into the world. What do you want from this? How will the world be different once we've launched our digital documentary?
So we're here right now, and I started as a deafblind intervener in 1996, assisting people in the community, hand over hand sign language, going to the bank, going to doctor's appointments. Fast forward to where we are right now. I didn't see where we were being where I would be. Social services is quiet work. It's impactful work. Where I hope we go with that is to change that narrative, because you don't need to be a professional to do this work. You need to care. And I'm hoping that this, I've used the term footprint a couple of times, that this helps people create a footprint, whether they're somebody, in high school, a senior citizen, somebody that's got a little extra time to work, somebody that's working in the social services field to look at something, to look at wacky ideas. Wacky ideas are good. Wacky ideas change the world. I hope that GrowAbility is a catalyst. I
didn't let you see any of these questions in advance. You might have spied one when we were doing a quick test earlier. But is there anything you want to add? Is there anything that I didn't cover?
Yeah. I'm not somebody that is necessarily, that was, drawn to the use of media, was drawn to the use of film to champion the work that we do. That it was, helping people get jobs, helping people go to the bank, doing the things that we're supposed to do in social services. And the ability to be a part of something to be a part of GrowAbility, it's wonderful. And I see the immense value in utilizing our team, our group of people that have come together to use this wonderful medium to help people. And it's an avenue that I never thought that I would go down, but I'm so happy that I'm going down it. And thank you.
Well, we will make you a star on the internet in a better way than most people become stars on the internet.
Oh, holy.
So where can people reach you online? Where can people find out more about the patch or Hutton House?
Sure. So there are two websites. There's huttonhouse.com. There's thepatchlondon.ca. I'm Joe at growabilitypod.com.
And then I think we'll put links to socials, certainly in the show notes, and then on our website as well. We'll make sure those are all up there as you want them. So thank you so much. I want to return to you in just a moment, but before then, I want to say I don't know that I'm going to get much more screen time. So I want to take a moment to thank Hutton House for their commitment and belief in this, and of course the entire team of staff and volunteers at the Patch for all your support through this process. And I'm looking at you, Gabor, Sarah, Dorantina, Holly, Scott, Michaela, Penny, and of course Faye. Thank you all for everything through this process. And Joe, thank you for letting me take over your seat for this first episode. But more than that, for being an absolutely amazing collaborator on this project.
Thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate it.
GrowAbility is hosted by Joe Gansevles and Holly Pugsley, and produced by Joe Gansevles and me, Adam Caplan. Lighting and camera design by Kevin Labont, with production support from Oliver Gansevles. GrowAbility's production was made much easier with the help of Jesse Chen, Terry Fujioka, Zach Grossman, Zachary Meads, Leo Shin, and Deborah Camargo from Fanshawe College's Broadcasting, Television, and Film Production program. Thanks to Janice Robinson from Fanshawe for arranging these students' invaluable participation. Holly Pugsley of Just Keep Growing provided the plants and made sure they looked great. Audience and Marketing Strategy by Japsamar Kermiglani with support from Tess Alcock. Our theme music is Wandering William by Adrian Walter and can be found on Soundstripe. Adam Caplan, once again that's me, is Webisode's executive producer, and Sammy Orlowski is our senior creator. Special thanks to Jennifer Routley from Siskins the Law Firm for arranging to host us at their beautiful head office in downtown London, Ontario. GrowAbility is a Webisodes production and is produced with the support and participation of the team at The Patch and Hutton House.